Today we'll have a closer look at the Triaxis model in the XFX3. You may know the Mesa Mark amp series and also the Triaxis, which is basically a preamp that covers most of the preamps from the Mark amps. They are very unique in the amp world. And why are they unique? Well, it's because those amps, they have also a pre-gain equalization, which is the bass, middle and treble control is located before the signal hits the distortion stage of the amp. And also they have the post-gain equalization, which is a 5-band graphic EQ, found at the side of the Mark amps, and in the dynamic voice in the Triaxis. And those amps, in my opinion, are one of the most flexible amps on the market, but the downside is they're a little bit difficult to dial in. It's not that you can set your just the gain control and then adjust bass, middle and treble and then you're done. Like with other amps, for example, the Marshall amps or Angle amps. And today I would like to show you my approach how to get the good sound out of the Triaxis. I was a long time user of the real Triaxis together with a Mesa 290 power amp, and I know it sounds kick-ass in real life, but also in the XFX. So I was choosing already the USA Pre-Lead 2 Red model, which is basically the Lead 2 red mode in the Triaxis, the mode with the most gain. And as you can see, you have two knobs which address the gain stages. So you don't have only one gain knob, you have two, like in the rear Triaxis, which are called input drive and overdrive here, and also like in the Mark amps, which have basically the same preamp structure. And you have the bass, middle and treble control. And as I said before, they are affecting the signal before it hits the distortion stage. You can also see it here in the XFX. If you go to the preamp page and then you can see the tone stack location, it says pre. And for example, if you choose a Marshall amp like a Plexi, it says post, and this is the case for most of the other amp models. Also, you can see that the tone stack frequency of Marshall amps is around 600 Hz. And this is also something which is different with American amps, and also very unique in the Triaxis, where it's around 250 Hz. But keep in mind, this is also pre-gain tone stack, so it's behaving drastically differently than amps with a post-gain tone stack. So my starting point is usually when dialing in a high gain tone in the Triaxis, like setting the input in overdrive, maybe around somewhere at 1 o'clock. It depends on the signal that's coming from the guitar. So in this case I'm using a Harley Benton Fusion with Roswell pickups. And well, the Roswell pickups, they're a little bit harsh in my opinion, so I usually lower them. But that results in a guitar that doesn't have so high output, so a little bit low output. And well, let's see how it sounds with those amp settings. In my opinion, it sounds okay. It's a usable rock sound, but it's not what we would call high gain sound. And also it sounds a little bit mid-focused, which I remember also from the real Triaxis and Mark effects, a bit mid-focus sounding. The next thing I would do is I would like to get more saturation out of the amp, so to speak, get into high gain territory. And basically these knobs, as they are located in front of the amp and affecting the dry signal, they are more or less a glorified boost section. And usually when boosting, I'm trying to raise the mids. So I set the mids to max and let's see what it does. And as you can see, the overall sound is similar, at least the characteristic, but we get more distortion. Also, I'm raising the treble a little bit, because treble is usually something which is not so critical if you're boosting it. And usually with the bass you should be careful, because when boosting something, usually you don't boost bass frequencies because you will end up with flubbiness in the bass. I tend to reduce the bass in the real Triaxis, but with this sound, well, I can reduce it, but I found the sound overall okay if I set it to 5. One thing I would do is, especially with this guitar, I would try to raise the overall level from the guitar, because as I said, it's a little bit low. And I can do this by raising the input trim a little bit in the X effects. Let's see. Might be a little bit too much, so I would leave it maybe 1.2. Yeah. So it sounds pretty decent to me. And if you would like to get a little bit more gain, you can maybe you can raise the overdrive a little bit. And I would leave it like that now for my test. You have to be a little bit careful with the overdrive, because you will get it flubbiness. Then maybe if you set it higher, you have to reduce the bass in some situations. But as you can see now already, these settings, they look weird, maybe drastically to you, but they're quite common in Mark M series and also in the Triaxis. And well, the reason for this is it's because they are affecting the pre-gain signal. You would end up, or you would not choose those settings if your amp is a post-gain tone controller. Okay. The post-gain equalization happens exclusively in the 5-band equalizer in the Mark M series. And the Triaxis has fixed settings of the Mark M 5-band graphical EQ, and you can address those settings with a knob that is called dynamic voice, as I remember. It's not as flexible as the real Mark M, but luckily in the Triaxis, in the XFX, the Triaxis modes, they have these 5-band Mark EQ. And I found this EQ is tailored perfectly to fit with the Mark amps. It also works great with other amps. I recommend to try it. You can choose from different output equalizations, but we would stick with the 5-band Mark EQ. And as I said, it may sound a little bit mid-focused, so usually people end up with a more or less V-shaped curve. But I have to say, in my opinion, these faders here, they react more drastically than the real faders on the real Mark amps. So on the real Mark amp you may see something like this very often, but I can show you if I just set it like that. You end up with a very scooped sound, and it doesn't work in a live situation, and also in a mix you will easily get lost. So I would recommend to do this exclusively by ear and not by trying to copy someone's settings from the real amps. I would start to reduce the mids overall a little bit, maybe 2.5 dB. And the thing with the mids is, especially with this 750 Hz fader, I recommend to reduce it as far as you can hear a difference. And for example, if you set it lower, maybe lower than 6 here, or lower than 8, the difference is not so audible for me. So I would rather, now I would compare maybe 4 dB and 6 dB. It's not so drastically, so I would rather set it around -4 dB. The reason for that is, although if you may not hear the difference in a studio setup, you might hear the difference between -4 and -6 in a live setting. And in a live setting, I found out it's better to have a little bit more mids, and so I try to reduce it only as much as needed, but not more. So I leave it at -4 now, and the other frequencies, they sound basically okay to me. But what you can do is, if you would like to get a little bit more punch out of your sound, especially in if you're playing metal rhythm guitars, then you want to have maybe a little bit out of those upper mid-range punch, then I would recommend to raise the 2.2K fader. But you have to be a little bit careful with that, because also it's maybe working with the rhythm guitars. You get very much of a percussive element with this. And this is not so helpful if you are after singing lead sounds and solo notes. So I'd rather keep it a little bit lower here. I think the overall sound is okay. I would reduce a little bit of the treble here, because it's in some regions of the fretboard it sounds a little bit harsh to me. But as you can see, if I lower the treble, as it's affecting the signal before it hits the distortion stage, you lose a little bit of saturation. So maybe I would address this by the harshness by reducing the 6.6K fader. Well, here we go. Let's see how it sounds with a little bit of delay. Sounds pretty decent to me, and I think this sound would work in a live situation pretty well. But of course, you could get a little bit more saturation if you boost the amp with a drive block. And I set it to 0 now, and I was choosing already a drive block, and the model is the Tube Screamer 808. Drive to 0, level to max, and let's see what it does to our lead sound. I would reduce it a little bit, but other than that, sounds pretty decent to me. Another trick is if you want to boost something, you can do it in the amp block, in the XFX. It has a dedicated input boost section you can address by going to the preamp page. As you can see here, you can choose which boost type is it's mimicked in the input boost you activate it. Also, we can set it to the tube screamer, set the level, which is pretty high now. We can boost it also with that. What I personally like to do is to use another page of the amp block to boost the signal in the mids, and that is the input EQ. And what I like to do is to boost around 800 Hertz a little bit. And trying to do this now. Also, you can see you have the ability to set a low and a high cut. This is also something I'm doing very often in the before the signal hits the input stage of the amp. So let's try out that sound. Wow, it sounds pretty good to me. So I hope this will help you to get the most out of your Mark amps in real life or also in the models with the XFX. I have to say they're pretty spot on, the models in the XFX 3, also the models in the XFX 2, and also in real life the Mesa Mark amp series, they are kick-ass. They are very expensive over here in Europe, but if you can get one for a good price, then I would definitely recommend them, because with those amps you don't need any other tools to boost them, or to the 5-band equalizer is so flexible. Usually you don't need another additional equalizer in your effects loop. You can get nearly any kind of sound you can imagine out of them, but yeah, you have to know how to use them. So if you like this video, please hit the like or subscribe button and enter comments in the section below. Send me your questions. I would like to know your opinions about the Mesa Mark amp series, and yeah, well, see you soon.